Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm Daniel Torres, live from P2PI and SMG's Retail Media Summit UK here in London. And for this interview, I'm accompanied by Ana Afán, who's the Group Head of Digital Activation at Coca-Cola Europacific Partners. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien, encantada de estar aquí contigo.
Maybe you can tell the audience why we're speaking in Spanish, where you come from and how you ended up here.
Yeah, my name is Ana Afán. I have an international background. I am originally from Spain, but I studied abroad. And yeah, essentially, I've always lived abroad and never back, to my home country. So thinking about my background a little bit, so I started my professional career working for the European Union in Brussels. And after being in the public sector for 3 years or so, I decided to venture into the private one. So for that, I prepared a Master's in E-Business and Innovation at Lancaster Uni. And after that, I joined the Hook Group, or THG, for those people that know it like that, looking after one of their websites. So that involved responsibilities like, for example, merchandising the website, coming up with the trading plan, making sure that we had the right segmented and targeted marketing plan, depending on the marketing channel, of course. And I was also responsible for launching the international website, so making sure that we had the right UX depending on the geography. And it's fair to say that that was a huge learning curve, very fast-paced environment, so definitely a very good one. And from the retailer side, I moved to the manufacturer side to work for PepsiCo.
Quite the move.
Yeah, that's right. So I moved from the north of England to the south of England.
Quite the move as well.
That's right, indeed. And yeah, it was really good. I was heading our sales team for things like pure players for the UK business unit. And from there, I got promoted to lead the change, to be, one of the agents of change, creating our e-com marketing in-house team that looked after the EMEA region.
So retail media before it was called retail media, basically.
Pretty much. But it was extremely exciting times.
Oh, yeah.
And from there, I then moved to Lavazza Coffee to head up e-commerce for the UK, the Nordics and Ireland. And again, a very interesting brand with a very loyal customer base, very over-indexing in D2C and also very premium partnerships in the away-from-home channel. And very recently, so almost 3 years ago, I joined Coca-Cola Europacific Partners, first and foremost to head up the e-com channel for GB. So that meant coming up with a strategy, making sure that we had the right capability, that we were measuring the right things and course-correcting accordingly. Mm-hmm. And 2 months ago, I joined something close to, our global team. So I now head up our digital activation for our group.
Perfect. Yeah, no, and interesting, you're one of the few people that's actually been, well, not to mention the public sector, which is also very different, but also in the player retail and then transitioned into FMCG, which is not an easy one because FMCG has very best practice and has some rigorous ways of working in other ways. So well done for that, because it's pretty unique. What about in the time that you've been in retail and FMCG, how would you summarize the evolution of e-com in this time period?
If I look back when I started in e-com in 2013...
That's when I started headhunting as well.
Wow.
So I've kind of seen it from the sidelines.
So yeah, definitely people would associate online shopping with all things apparel, travel, sports, nutrition, health and beauty, but not so much FMCG or grocery, because there was this misconception that you would be getting products that were very close to the best before date, that it was not so convenient compared to going to the corner shop. But since then, there's been a mindset shift, and it's been accelerated by the pandemic. So why is that? A lot of retail investment in all things operations. Retailers invested a lot in automation and robotics, therefore making sure that the fulfillment costs decreased and that the service levels increased. Secondly, they've invested a lot in infrastructure, such as, for example, opening urban fulfillment centers, distribution centers. So again, to improve those service levels, that convenience, and opening up more delivery slots. And essentially that meant it could include more and more of those geographical areas.
And be more cost efficient, I guess.
That's right. So making sure that everything is more efficient and more effective. So there's this mindset shift. People associating online grocery shopping with, all right, this is more for young families and millennials, to something way more mainstream. The e-com grocery penetration prior to the pandemic was around 7.4%, picked up 14% during the pandemic, and after the pandemic, it remained stable at around 11%.
Okay.
Which means that people did not leave the channel entirely. They were happy with what they were getting. There's been this other shift as well, so a lot of investment from retailers, and is that customer acquisition that they did during the pandemic, they are working really hard to retain, and that's through their loyalty and reward schemes to make those journeys way more personalized, so shoppers want to continue coming back to shop with them online. So definitely it's been a very interesting evolution over the years, and we just need to keep our ears to the ground.
Yeah, totally, and it's a bit of a Pareto principle in the way of that 11% in this case of your shoppers, that you can really get a lot out of them if you work with them online. So tell us a bit more about your current role at the Coca-Cola Europacific Partners, in case somebody's landed from somewhere else and doesn't know the difference between the Coca-Cola company and a bottler, which you work for now. Maybe that could be interesting.
So in my new role that I joined 2.5 months ago, I head up our digital activation for group. So what that means is that I look after Western Europe, except for Ireland, and also Asia Pacific.
Big region, by the way.
But if I had to summarize it in 3 main areas, first and foremost, establishing and determining the picture of success for all of our digital touchpoints across all channels. So that means not only the e-com touchpoint, but every touchpoint that has a digital element to it, such as digital screens, kiosks in QSR, and so on and so forth. But not only determining the picture of success, but making sure that they are embedded within the channels, so they are not back of mind. The second area I look after is all things retail media. So I'm the person responsible for the strategy, for providing capability, making sure that we are assessing the retail media networks in a standardized way across countries. And finally, very important, measurement. So whilst we appreciate that there is no standardization of measurement given by the industry, Coca-Cola Europacific Partners, we want to develop, and we are in the process of it, a standardized way of measuring those retail media networks, whether you are in a country or across country, so we make sure that we are comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, very on time, this role, by the way, in the middle of the explosion of retail media, to go into this responsibility for no other than Coke is pretty big.
It is, yeah. And the third element to my role is, of course, digital shelf measurement. So what is our roadmap? What do we want to track? And more importantly, this is done not only for the home channel, but also for the away from home channel. And to your point on the Coca-Cola company, so yes, I don't do this by myself. I work really closely with the Coca-Cola company. And for people that don't quite know what the difference is between Coca-Cola Europacific Partners and the Coca-Cola company, in simple terms, the Coca-Cola company are the brand owners, meaning that they are responsible for the visual identity, the toolkit, and the above-the-line advertising, whereas Coca-Cola Europacific Partners, or CCP, we are the bottler. We are responsible for the customer relationship, so with retailers, wholesalers, etc., the distribution of the product, and the execution, so all of the below the line.
It's like brand building practically and brand activation on the other side. Retail media, as a natural skeptic that I am, at the beginning I thought it would just be a fad or a bubble or something coming from the US. But obviously, I think it's here to stay and it's changing the industry, no? What's your take on it?
Yeah, everybody's talking about retail media. And what I say internally to the teams is that we need to demystify it. And Essentially, I do this by thinking about two elements to retail media. First, the element that is not new and the element that is new. So touching on the element that is not new, that involves all of the touch points that we were booking years ago, such as, for example, the in-store displays, wobblers, floor stickers, whereas, like on site, it would have been, say, your search banners, your featured products. So that element is not new, and we need to feel very comfortable and confident talking about it. But now there's this element that is new that makes people a little bit more uncomfortable. First and foremost, because the retailers are now able to have inventory, media inventory outside of the retail environment. So off-site, like with connected TV, out of home, etc. Yeah. But also the second element is the utilization of that first-party data for more relevant targeting of the ads. So these two elements, the not new element, the new element, people need to get very comfortable talking about it, because it's only going to get more and more sophisticated as, like we progress in our retail media journey. Yeah,
absolutely. And how are you seeing it, like, from the retailer side? Like, why do you think that they've done this differentiated offering of retail media?
There are multiple advantages to retail media for retailers. I can think of three. So first, it's all about the utilization and monetization of the first-party data. Now they are able to collaborate with brands and make those ads way more targeted to who they are and, like the behavior that they are showing.
Yeah.
Secondly, retail media is providing new revenue streams. So digital out of home, connected TV, and so on and so forth, that perhaps, like a few years ago, they would not have access to. So definitely that is a very good revenue stream. In some cases, these media touchpoints are also high margin for them. And thirdly, it's all around competitive advantage. Not only versus their competitor set, the more sophisticated that the retail media network is, but also competitive advantage from revenue perspective. Why? Because the more sophisticated the retail media network is, the more targeted the shopper journey is going to be, and the more that customer lifetime cycle is going to be, increased by, and therefore translating into a longer, higher revenue stream.
Whatever an FMCG sells has sell out for a retailer, that doesn't mean that they're going to invest the same in media. Whereas, like, if you have a better media offering, you'll get more dollars from there without necessarily selling more of the product. Why do you think that brands have, got into it?
First-party data and measurement. Being able to unlock that first-party data to be relevant in the way that we advertise. So right shopper at the right time, in the right place, right message, yeah? But then, more importantly, being able to get to that closed-loop measurement from the moment that the shopper is exposed to an ad to the moment that they convert. And in some cases, depending on the retail media network, actually the repurchase rate. So, as I mentioned earlier, the full customer lifetime cycle. And all in all, by being able to track all of this, you get close enough ROI calculation that in some cases is likely to be higher than if you were not to do this retail media effort. So all in all, brands, through the user's first-party data and, at the end of the day, closed-loop measurement, are able to maximize the money that they get for the media monies.
Not only in theory, but I guess that in practice they're seeing that that's the case, that it actually happens, no?
Yeah, exactly. The more sophisticated a retail media network is and the more data they give you, you are actually going to get more data points to justify your investment.
You mentioned that you do retail media, but also other touch points. What other touch points are becoming more relevant for brands to communicate with their consumers? Because one could think it's only the banners on the internet.
Exactly, and this is, a massive misconception that retail media is just on site. No, retail media is in store, it's on site, and it is off site. So thinking about on site, for example, and we are seeing this, for example, in other geographies, we see dynamic digital shelf displays that change the content depending on the time of the day, depending on the temperature outside, meaning that they are relevant to what is happening, what matters to the shopper at the right time. So that's extremely exciting. From an off-site perspective, yes, we are seeing a lot in the programmatic display arena, shoppable connected TV ads. But the one that is really exciting is the fact that now we have some retail media networks partnering up with digital out-of-home providers. And what that means is that the retailer can come and say, okay, having partnered up with this brand, what we see through the use of our first-party data is that this area, geographical area, I mean, of under index, and we can place digital out-of-home ads in those, like areas.
Like, for example, like in bus stops?
Exactly. So, for example, that digital out-of-home would be like in bus shelters as an example. So that retailer would collaborate with a brand and say, right, you have an area of under index in the south. And with their first-party data, they would be able to place those digital out-of-home displays close to stores. So therefore making your above-the-line advertising, so your digital screens in digital out-of-home, way more effective because they are making you be like closer to the final point of purchase.
Yeah, so it's like the closest thing to having a banner on the internet that brings you to the supermarket website. It's like having a billboard, digital billboard somewhere close to a supermarket. What about the digital shelf? It's a bit of a concept out there, but I've heard, for example, that you can't really do retail media well until you don't have the digital shelf in order. What are the key elements of it?
Oh, look, I need to clarify something.
You can tell me I'm wrong, that's fine.
No, it's not that. I'm thinking more about digital shelf measurement is extremely important when it comes to helping you understand how you are performing in an online environment.
Okay.
Yes, but equally as important it is to nail it for those that research online and purchase offline, so the ROPO effect. So we are not only catering to the online shopper, but we are essentially like catering for that omni-channel shopper. So that clarification made, there are many KPIs that we could be tracking as part of our digital shelf measurement, but I'm going to focus around my top 4. So first and foremost would be visibility or share of search. And the example that I always use is that if you go into a store, you walk in aisle and see 100 products. Now you search something on a retailer website. If you scroll down on the first page, you see maximum 30 products. And it is unlikely that you'll go past the first page of results.
Yeah.
Then you do the same exercise on an app, and scrolling down the first page, maximum you see 10 products. So what this means is that the digital shelves are shrinking. And if you are not showing at the very top of the search results, you are not going to be findable and you are not going to be chosen. So it's extremely important that we do that audit regarding our key search terms that matter for our brands and our categories. Extremely important because people are not going to scroll endlessly and they're not going to go past the first page of results. So that's the first metric. The second one I want to call out is, of course, availability, so reducing those out of stocks. As brands, we owe ourselves to our shoppers, and there is nothing worse than going on a website and seeing your product out of stock, or you cannot even find it.
Must be like the nightmare, no?
Yeah, exactly. So what we need to make sure is that we keep our shoppers satisfied, but most importantly that we don't lose that search ranking, because when you're out of stock, you drop off search, and you need time and also money to get back up to where you were prior to going out of stock.
It's really penalized.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes we don't have that, money or time to, go back to where we were. But very, very important is that this availability metric is a cross-functional metric. That is, we need to work really closely with demand planning and also field sales and, of course, sales to nail it, because it is also a reflection of how we're doing in store. Because if a store picker goes in aisle to pick up the product to put in the online order and it's not there, that means that we are also out of stock in store. So we need to fix it cross-functionally.
Yeah.
Number 3 on digital shelf measurement, content accuracy versus the source of truth, but most importantly, content quality. Thinking about in-store, you walk in aisle and you're able to interact with the product, read the ingredients, allergens, point of sale material. But then when you are on site, that basic info, you can get it through the optimized product title, the product image. But we have in digital the ability and also the responsibility to educate and also to inspire shoppers, such as, educating them on the lifestyle claims of our product, the sustainability claims, the consumption occasions, recreation of the perfect serve, etc. And this we do through secondary images, videos, A+ content, very important. And finally, ratings and reviews, because they are the ultimate sign of shopper trust. We owe ourselves to our shoppers, and we want them to be happy with our product and be the ultimate advocates for our brand.
Yeah. So whatever happened to good old DTC? What are your thoughts on it? Because I feel like there was a lot of conversation about like FMCGs, do you need DTC to get first-party data and so on. But I feel like there's a consensus now among FMCG brands that probably retail media is a more optimum way to get that. So is there a future for DTC? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
DTC has been a hot topic for a number of years for FMCG brands, and they are trying to figure out whether it serves a purpose compared to other channels. At Coca-Cola Europacific Partners, we do have a D2C called yourcoca-cola.co.uk, and for us, it fulfills two main purposes. So first, it's about using it as a test and learn ground. So trying and launching those small-scale trials. What packaging, what sort of, like new pack formats, what flavors, what inputs resonate with shoppers. Yeah. So we analyze the results and we share them not only within the market, but across markets so everybody can learn. But more importantly, we also share them sometimes externally with retailers, so those small-scale trials can become national initiatives. So that's the first purpose. Regarding the second one, it's all about being closer to the end shopper and closer to the end consumer. We want to be able to talk to them in a relevant, way and understand what matters to them above and beyond just value. So subscription tiers, give with purchases, different rewards, and also to be able to offer them something that they cannot find elsewhere, such as, for example, the personalized cans that we were offering for them, to personalize at the time. So definitely these are the two purposes of D2C, and we see value in them.
So there's value and there's probably a future as well, because I think that what you're saying is that you're basically creating experiences and really giving your most loyal consumers a superior brand experience, so not based so much on value, but on, well, it's a different type of value, It's more value than cost, let's say.
It's more like that retention, so making sure that we are offering value add, to them through different metrics rather than just, price and promo.
And you guys, obviously, Coca-Cola is a brand that's everywhere, right? It's probably, I think it's one of these brands that's in every point of sale practically. And one thing that we've covered a lot on the podcast lately is, since you're in a lot of outlets, means that you work with a lot of distributors, right? Which is that B2B part of the business. So obviously that has a lot of potential for digitalization, and we've talked a lot about eB2B.
Right.
Interestingly, especially in emerging markets, but because they have a bigger footprint of traditional trade. But yeah, what are you seeing in that area?
Online B2B has grown massively, again, also since the pandemic. So if prior I was talking about the e-com grocery penetration going up during the pandemic and also post-pandemic, it's happened the same in online B2B. And it's here to stay because there's been also a generational change in, the business owners. Now they are accustomed to having everything in one place, the procurement, the ordering of the product. They are able to now go online and compare prices, getting everything delivered because they don't have as much resource. We are talking about small business owners, so retailers, small wholesalers, caterers.
Corner stores.
Exactly, so definitely they are used to that. And what we need to understand as brands is that we need a separate strategy for online B2B, because the way that we need to talk to those business owners is completely different to the way that we would be talking B2C. So definitely different strategy, different comms. And from a Coca-Cola perspective, so in CCP, we also have a B2B portal called My CCP. And essentially, we serve as a one-stop shop for those business owners, not only providing the product for them to purchase, but offering, for example, planograms, category advice to grow their business, education on how to recreate the perfect serve in their outlets. Say, for example, we also offer point-of-sale material for them to order and put in their businesses. And we've received very good feedback.
Nice.
And to be fair, everybody should be looking very closely at their online B2B strategy and business at the end of the day, because they are the ones that are going to give you that reach. They are the ones that are going to put your brand out there without a doubt. So you need to nail that. And
if I can add to that, in emerging markets where you have a majority of traditional trade, and where a lot of the growth is actually coming from in FMCG, it even becomes more important to have that capability well developed.
That's right.
And what about food service aggregators? So we've had on the podcast Uber, we've had Deliveroo, and they're doing interesting stuff and offering more to the FMCG industry. What's your perspective on them?
they are the sub-channel that have evolved the most since the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, food service aggregators, these platforms you would associate as a distressed purchase. I don't have something at home, or, oh, it's my weekend treat kind of thing. But since then, it's become so normalized and so ingrained in our day-to-day. And they've achieved this by completely pivoting their business model. First, exiting the markets that didn't work for them. Secondly, through diversification of their business model, partnering up with retailers to fulfill that last mile and making sure that they also offer that quick-come grocery, which is so important. But also partnering up with brands, providing that storefront on their platforms, which is really exciting. But now, in the framework of all things retail media, we see them adding more and more media touchpoints to their retail media network so they can claim a size of the pie. And yes, since they've evolved so much, I think that this is not the last that we are going to see of food service aggregators. I think that we need to keep our ears to the ground.
So, well, I'll ask you the last one, which is our famous question, which is with the interesting career that you've had. If you had to go back to yourself as you were graduating, what would be that one piece of advice you would give yourself?
I would 100% say, enjoy the journey. And whilst it might sound cliche, when you're younger, you tend to have that end destination in mind. So then you deliver something and move on so you can be closer to that end destination. But you don't celebrate the small wins. You don't celebrate the small moments. You get frustrated with these detours. And I would say, yes, embrace those small moments, embrace the journey, and also the detours, because they teach you a lot. Because what you don't want to be doing is to think about that end destination and life being what happens to you while you're busy making other plans, like John Lennon said.
Ah, there you go.
There you go.